So we move to the third chapter of the book of Nehemiah. In fact, it's one of those chapters you're tempted to skip over. There's a bunch of names nobody could ever pronounce. In fact, if I asked someone from our life group or Bible study to read the third chapter of Nehemiah, not a single hand would go up. But I think what we're going to find is it's a whole lot more relevant than you might think. It's a story about where everyone went all in. This is the story of people going all in on God's honoring vision. So a couple of weeks ago when we began the series, I said that there were three goals for the series. I want to remind you of them. The first one was to seek God's heart. Second one was to be broken together. And the third one was to act boldly. We want to encourage everyone to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into God's words so that the things that break the heart of God would begin to break our hearts. So we're immersing ourselves in as many scriptures as we can and leaning into prayer. Secondly, we want everyone to be broken together. We've seen in the story of Nehemiah, when there is a collective heartbreak, it leads to a unified heartbeat. Our hearts have been broken for the one who doesn't know Christ. And you're praying, many of you are praying, you have your bracelets still. You're praying as God leads you to who that one person is. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a co-worker, maybe it's a neighbor who has yet to experience the grace of God in their life. We just don't want you to talk or pray about these things. We want you to act boldly. And so last week I talked about courage. We want you to respond with your whole heart and take whatever courageous next step God is calling you and me to do, just like Nehemiah did. I think all of us honestly want to be a part of a story like Nehemiah. We want our lives to count for something bigger than ourselves. We want to be a part of history and leave a mark for good in our world. And yet we often talk ourselves out of courageous steps, bold actions that would write us into the story that God is authoring. Maybe some of you have that urge to act boldly, but you say, I don't have the capacity right now to do more. I don't know if anything I have I can bring to the table is going to be good enough. Well, Paul reminds us in Ephesians 3 in this beautiful prayer that God can do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine. So if you have your Bibles, you can open to Nehemiah 3 and you can begin to look at all those names. They are amazing. Let me set the backdrop for where we are. In 587, Jerusalem was conquered by the Babylonians. The city was left in ruins. The people were exiled. The temple was destroyed. The walls were destroyed. And anything there could stand was set on fire. And by the time Nehemiah shows up on the scene, it's about 150 years later. Some of the exiles have gone back to the temple, back to Jerusalem to try to rebuild the temple. But the city was depressing. Jerusalem was nothing but a shadow of what it once was. When Nehemiah hears how bad it is in Jerusalem, he's heartbroken. He cries out to God. And God gives him this unbelievable favor. The Babylonian king, not a follower of God, you've got to understand that, not a follower of God, literally commissions Nehemiah to go back and rebuild Jerusalem and build the walls. And provides all of the materials necessary, provides all the letters that will get him through all the different countries that he has to go to get there safely. He goes to Jerusalem, presents his unbelievable vision for the people, and now we have turned the page to Nehemiah 3. We find 40 groups of people, or names of people, individuals. You've got priests and politicians. You've got merchants and musicians. You have men and women and families. You have children. You have name after name and group after group showing what it looks like when everyone goes all in. So let's dive in. Let's read Nehemiah 3, 1-2. Now, there's some Hebrew names here. And if I mispronounce them, I don't think any of you are ever going to know that I mispronounced their name. Because if you call me on it, you're going to read the next time we have those names. There, Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in place, building as far as the Tower of the 100, which they dedicated, and as far as the Tower of Hananel. The men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zakur, son of Imri, built next to them. This is the moment when they have officially begun to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. He emphasizes in this chapter how person after person, after group, built next to the next person or the next group. That literal phrase, next to, is used over and over again. The word literally means hand to hand. They weren't building in isolation. They were building shoulder to shoulder because everyone was all in. Want to guess what the title of my sermon is? Everyone was all in. This is a passage of Scripture that is more descriptive than prescriptive. It is telling you what they did rather than how you should apply it to your life in 2026. So one way to make it applicable today is to look at some principles that we can find in Nehemiah 3. So I want to draw out 3 principles and then how they apply to us today. So the first principle is God can use people right where they are. God can use people right where they are. When we looked at verse 1, we saw the priests building right next to the temple because that's where they were. In Nehemiah 3:23, it says, beyond them, Benjamin and Hashub made repairs in front of their house, and next to them, Azariah, son of Maaseiah, the son of Ananiah, made repairs beside his name. By the way, those of you who are looking for names for your children and grandchildren, you can gather some names from this chapter here. Then the same thing is true in Nehemiah 3:28. And above the horse gate, the priests made repairs, each in front of his own house. So where did the priests work? They worked by the temple. Where did the merchants work? They worked by the market. You have where did Benjamin and Zadok work in their neighborhood? Right where they live. That's brilliant leadership by Nehemiah, because proximity increases ownership. Let me say it again. Proximity increases ownership. You see, if Benjamin can see through the window at the wall in front of him, there's great motivation to do it right the first time. He doesn't want to get a letter from the Jerusalem HOA telling him he didn't do it right. You see, proximity to the issue can increase ownership of the issue. Listen, God can use ordinary people right where they are to do extraordinary things. Here's what that means for you and me. A, this is how it applies to us. You are in the right spot. You are in the right spot. The other day I read about a farmer, an older guy, who sent a letter to his son, and he said, "Son, I know you're in prison. Because you're in prison, I won't be able to plant the potatoes because I need your help to plow the field." The son wrote back to him and said, "Dad, don't plant the potatoes because that's where the money is buried." A few days later, tractors and all sorts of equipment showed up, dug up the entire field trying to find the money. Didn't find the money. Next letter from the son said, "Okay, Dad, it's clear now. You can plant the potatoes." He was in the right spot, right where he was. You're in the right spot. We are in the right spot to be used by God. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be seasons in our life or a time in our life when God asks us to go to a different spot. It may not feel like you're in the right spot. You may be in a job that you're not thrilled about. You may be at a home or an apartment that you feel stuck in, or a relationship that's on life support. Maybe you have circumstances or situations in life that have become so all-consuming. And you look around you and you think, surely God is not going to tap me on the shoulder as I'm standing here. But listen, you are perfectly positioned for what God wants to do. In fact, part of the wall may be closer than you think. Because, and I think this is in your outline, God uses broken people in broken situations to rebuild broken things all of the time. Let me say it again. God uses broken people in broken situations to rebuild broken things all of the time. Right where they are. You see, I'm not in the right place for you. You are. We can pray for each other, and we can walk beside each other, but you have been perfectly positioned by God to reach that one person that maybe Vaughn and I would have no contact with, but you have contact with them. All right, number 2. Principle 2. God equips people for the work He calls them to do. God equips people for the work He calls them to do. Here's what I've experienced and watched in other people. You may believe that you are in the right spot and still not believe that you have what it takes. Many of us can acknowledge that we are right where we need to be. But we still cannot, but we believe the lie that Satan has given to us, that we have nothing to offer. But I want you to look at verse 8. Uzziel, son of Harhina, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the next section, and Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Now think about wall projects. This wall is probably 6 feet across, and the stones that you are going to have to move to build that wall are massive stones. And yet God uses goldsmiths and perfume makers to restore that wall. There's no heavy equipment. There's no bulldozers, but they had perfume makers and goldsmiths. So look down at verse 12 of Nehemiah 3. Shallum, son of Halohesh, ruler of the half district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section with the help of his daughters. I want you to note the word daughters. This is a ruler. He's like a city councilman. And he's repairing the wall, and he's using his daughters. Here's the point. Goldsmiths, perfume makers, daughters, priests, they were all in. God has equipped every one of us to do the work He has called us to do. So here's what it means to you and me. A, you have to believe this. You've got to understand this. You have what it takes. You have what it takes. Because God will equip you with whatever it takes. As you depend on God, you might find yourself working in the nursery on a Sunday morning, or joining the media and computer team back here in the back. You might be greeting at the door. In 1934, two teenagers attended a revival in Charlotte, North Carolina. They walked into the revival and they could not find a single seat. So they walked away. An usher, a greeter, went out, said, "Come on back. I'll find you 2 seats." They came back. He found them 2 seats. An usher, an unknown named usher. One of those teenagers was Billy Graham. The other was his best friend who served on his board for 40 years, who came to know Christ that night because of the usher who we don't know the name of. You think God can't use you? God can use you. It may involve caring for elderly people or working with kids, some of which those kids are stuck in risky situations. Or maybe your part of the wall is to pray diligently for someone who has never experienced the grace of God. Your section of the wall may be redirecting resources you have set aside for you, and now they're being used for the kingdom of God. You have what it takes. I would suggest that when we do something bold for God, it doesn't happen when we are sitting in our recliners and easy chairs. I'm sure if you asked the goldsmith, he would be happier working with gold than with stone. Just because he is not in his comfort zone doesn't mean that God is not calling you to work there. All right, number 3, principle number 3. Every part assigned by God is significant. Every part assigned by God is significant. One way the enemy gets us divided is to compare assignments. The lie that he plants in our head is that our part is more significant than someone else's part. Or the second lie, that whatever part you have is insignificant. Neither are true. The only comparison that we should ever make is how we measure up to what God has asked us to do. So when God gives us a part of the wall, it is going to be significant. Nehemiah 3:14 says, "The dung gate was repaired by Micaiah, son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakarim. He built it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place." Now you would have thought, by the way, the dung gate is just exactly what you think it is, okay? You'd have thought that's where he would have put the perfume makers, but he didn't. He put this guy who's a ruler of the district, another city councilman. And this man didn't say, "Oh, that job's beneath me. I can't do that job. No, I'm too good for that. He paid attention to every detail so that the doors and the bolts and the bars were all in place. This man instead put those bolts on, those doors. Why would a man of his position take this job? Because the walls are only as strong as the weakest link. So here's what that means for us today. Not only are you in the right spot, not only do you have what it takes, but your part is significant, and that's A. Your part is significant. Everyone is significant. You're needed by others. You may not feel like your part is significant, but the wall is only as strong as its weakest link. Now, just because every part is significant doesn't mean that every part is equal. It just isn't. If you were to go verse by verse, you would find that some people did twice as many or 3 times as many spots on the wall as other people. But the sacrifice of each individual or the group was looked differently depending upon how God led them. The same is true today. All in means everyone, all of us are all in because every part is significant. Last October, my Los Angeles Dodgers, I have ownership in them since I've been a fan for 60 years. They won the World Series, second time in a row. When they interviewed the manager, Dave Roberts, after the game, he didn't point out all his superstars, and as Don Rulli and I talk about all the time, all his high-paid superstars. He said very simply, it took all 26 players to win this World Series. It took every single one of them. In fact, there are some people that played roles in that World Series, and some people would say, as I would say, it may be the best World Series in my lifetime. But we heard some names we never heard of before. They played important roles. You see, friends, to accomplish something extraordinary, it takes every one of us. So what do you do with these principles? Here's the question. Will you go all in? Will you go all in? That's B. Will you show up and step up to be a part of the story that God is writing today through this church? Will you act boldly? Friends, we live in extraordinary times. There's greater spiritual openness today than has been for a long time. People are not only interested in Jesus, they're eager to learn about him. We have a wonderful window of opportunity to reach many people for Christ. But we can't afford to pull back. We can't just shift into neutral and idle. It's time to move boldly. So I want to take just a minute, and I want to give you an example of what it looks like for a church to go all in. Okay? And some of you in this building were a part of that story. 20 years ago, I was working in a church across town. In 2006, I presented an idea to a group of people that we try to do something on a special day to serve the people of our community. As people caught the vision, they moved all in. We turned the gym into a global clothing store where everything was free. Can we have a picture of the... So that's a picture of the gym, and that's an empty, as you can see, it's just got hangers and tables. People came to sort for 2 days. That was set up on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. People came and sorted clothes, and sorted clothes, and sorted clothes, and sorted, and some of you are right here, you're saying, yeah. 15,000 garments. 15,000 garments. All right, show the picture of what it looks like. Yeah. People came from our community. We told them, come in, take as many as you want, take whatever you want. They came in with garbage bags. They walked out with garbage bags. I don't care if they resold them 2 weeks later in a garage sale. One other person said to me, not one other person, several other people said to me, I'm a nurse. Why don't we set up and do blood sugar checks and do blood pressure checks? Another one said, I'm a dental hygienist. How about we set up a room and I'll do fluoride treatments for every kid that comes through the room. Still another said, I'm an eye doctor. I can do eye exams for our kids. Other doctors said, I can do cancer screening for breast and prostate cancer. And yes, unfortunately, I will tell you that one very naive lady said to my wife one day, I've done everything, but I don't know where to go to get my prostate checked. I'm sorry, folks. That's what she said. Someone from law enforcement said, I can do DNA testing, fingerprinting, so that the parents can have something of their children. We made sure every person that walked in that room knew that the law enforcement was not there to arrest them. We lowered the price of gas in 2 gas stations for an hour and pumped 3,000 gallons of gas in 1 hour as lines stretched for blocks, and one of them was the gas station right over here. We had men dressed up in tuxedos, and as the gas was being pumped, they were handing homemade cookies to everyone in the car, and I had ladies that made, I don't know, 600 cookies, 600 dozen, I don't know, we had cookies everywhere. We had guys that went down to East Garden Village, and they met with the children in East Garden Village, and they had them bring their bikes, and they repaired their bikes, and they fixed their flat tires, and they showed them how they could do the same thing. We had EMS students from the college come and do EKG checks. We had beauticians giving free haircuts to kids. We had law enforcement even come, and they were outside, and you could bring your car up and they would check your car seat. And if your car seat either was broken or it wasn't the right size for the child that you had, they would give you a new one at no cost. It was a project where people went all in. This wasn't a one-man show. It took literally hundreds of volunteers. So here's a picture. Can we put the next picture up? Those are, I gave to every volunteer a shirt that said Day of Service. Now go to the next picture. There it is. Now I show that picture particularly for you, because the lady wearing that shirt used to come to this church as a child with her grandma Rose Minor. This is just a glimpse of what it looked like if everyone went all in. I'm not suggesting we do the Day of Service or anything like that. I want you to get a picture of what it means to go all in. All right, see, this is the moment to take bold steps. We said our hearts have been broken for the one who does not know Jesus. What if we went all in on that one? I want to encourage you to continue passionately, to continue praying for that one, to continue to look for opportunities to plant seeds with that. We need to boldly pray and pour our lives into that one person. How incredible it would be. Maybe you need to go all in our growing children and youth department. Maybe you can help develop a program with Lacey to expand our children's program, to reach more kids. Or do a children's story a couple of times a year. Or maybe God is laying it on your heart to be part of our computer and media team. Part of our team is graduating. We need to fill those spots. So here's the conclusion. Would you pray for God to show you exactly the part you are to play in this church? Let me say it again. Would you pray for God to show you exactly the part you are to play in this church? We began the worship service this morning